Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a disassembly and maintenance on this little guy right here. It's the TRM Holey Nerd, wearing a set of titanium scales. So let's go ahead and take this apart. Looks like T6, T6, T8, if I were a betting man. So let's go ahead and check it out. T6. This is so TRM, Three Rivers Manufacturing. Really pioneered the idea of interchangeable scales on a knife without removing anything from the knife itself. And this is one of those knives, right, where I could actually go ahead and, do I need to? I don't really need to, but I could just remove these two clip screws here as well, and then this screw here, and then swap out the scales entirely. I could put a different set of scales, if I owned a different set of scales on this guy, but I could put those other scales on here, and then the knife itself is no different, right? There's no change to the underlying, mechanics of it. It's still running just as smoothly as it was. It just happens to have a new set of scales on it. That's a really nice little detail, and it's a fun thing that they've done. And so, yeah, I'm not going to go ahead and take it apart, take that backside off, because I don't need to here. At least I don't think I need to here. And instead, my goal here is to do disassembly and maintenance rather than scale swap. But anyways, you could take those two off, remove the scale on the other side there, put a new scale on, no problem. You don't need to remove these three screws, dink, 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 if you need to just change the scales. There's no sense in doing that if you're just changing scales. Okay, bet this is a T8. T8. All right, beautiful. So what this will allow me to do, what I'm doing here is going a step further, and I'm fully disassembling the knife. The reason to do that is just to get in there and do some cleanup. This is a knife that I have actually carried pretty substantially since getting it. So this actually has some wear, so to speak, in it. This is a... I've gotten this maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and I haven't been, being completely honest with you, I've been dragging my feet on doing the review because you can't freaking buy them anyways. I mean, these days, it's actually getting a lot easier to buy things from TRM. Their capacity is going up, and I think a lot more people who want their work have gotten some of their work. But nonetheless, this is, I've not been, in a super hurry to do anything here because, well, what's the point, right? They're great knives. You don't need me to tell you that at this point, oddly, with DRM. But, So, but I'm finally getting around to doing the cleanup on this guy, which is a beautiful thing. And so, let's go on ahead. And I'll go ahead and start putting this guy back together. We're not far off from being done, by the way. It's a very simple knife in here. It's a liner lock, effectively. It's got a set of phosphor-bronze washers. Just good old-fashioned blade here. Okay, we know that this pivot here has a D shape to it, right? You can see the D shape at the top there. And we know that it needs to be facing down to reassemble the knife, because that's, well, the way the D shape is on here. So that's valuable. Use a little bit of knife pivot lube here. And what's that action? Okay, just a little bit of schmutz or something. All right, what I'm going ahead and do is take a look at the washer here. I'm looking at this washer. This side here, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. This side doesn't have a whole lot of wear to it. This side has actually been polished smooth by some things. So that tells me right there immediately that this side, so I keep dropping it in there. This side is the one that needs to face the blade because it's been moving. What I will go ahead and do, actually, is take a strop. Actually, this is a TRM strop, so not product placement. Well, technically it is because the product is placed right there. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is, once I clean this off, I'm going to go ahead and just strop these a little bit, polish up the washers. That's the side that's got some wear to it. This is not, strictly speaking, necessary, but it might produce a slightly smoother action. I have to be a little careful doing this. You don't want to go too far, or else you're going to end up changing the tolerances here. But, yeah, just kind of smoothing these guys off. Making sure to periodically rotate. That way you're not going to, change the flatness, so to speak. This is something I'm learning from... It's a YouTube channel, Huygens Optical, which is ridiculous. I appreciate this person very, very much. He's very clearly just a gigantic nerd. And unlike this, which is a small nerd. But anyways, I guess that's today's theme, is just nerds. But this channel is an optician of some variety, but he does, like, creates mirrors for telescopes and things like that. And he shows himself, and I've always thought, you know, like, oh, telescope mirror, that's got to be, you know, fancy. Creating that must be like, oh my God, how do you even get started doing the CNC and whatnot? And he's like, no, you just, like, you just put some pitch down and you just rub it real hard against that until you get the right sphericity. And it's like, holy crap, really? Not that I believe I could do optics, but it's just like, oh yeah, it's just polishing. It's just, you know, slow abrasion of material. It's not so different in some ways from sharpening a knife in terms of just slow, gradual abrasion of material. But one of the things he's always talking about is, you know, changing your angle periodically to make sure you're not. But yeah, so anyways. And this is, by the way, using a very fine paste on here. This is a diamond dia-sharp paste on this strop. This is not necessary. I'm going to be very honest here. This is not what I'm doing here, strictly speaking, necessary. But it just might sweeten the action a little bit. And not that the action was unsweet, but why not, right? I got it right here. And I get to show off a slightly different technique than I usually do. And there we go. I am polishing up both sides here, mostly because it doesn't matter either way. And it just, again, gives me more variation in my polishing strokes. And what we're going to see here is that already these are markedly more polished, right? It doesn't seem that way initially, but then when I rotate these guys, you see, oh yeah, and that's dirty. That's still got all the gunk on them, right? So, rotate, rotate, rotate. And considering this is a short video as it is, I hope, this should be pretty straightforward. So now next step after that is I put some booze on a cloth here. I just clean this off. I don't need to introduce any of the diamond compound into my pivot of my knife. But yeah, see, that's much more polished than it was before. And that should lead to a slightly smoother action. All right. And again, be careful with this. You wouldn't want to do this on like a sharpening stone or something like that. You'd remove way too much material. So the strop is just about the speed you need here. The goal is to really sneak up on the polish rather than being high speed about it. Just don't want to remove too much material. And again, see, beautifully polished now. All right, so now that we've got that done, I can put away my strop here. Let's go on ahead and put this guy back together. I have kind of lost which one of these is the up and down side, because neither of them is... Actually, this one still has a little bit of wear, so I'll assume that's the side there. Put a little bit here, mostly for adhesion. Come on now. There we go. Drop that in place, and now a little bit of lubrication there. And then I'll put a little bit onto the pivot itself here. That way the knife rotates around it beautifully. Yes, that is what a pivot does. Things rotate around it. Are you glad that I went there? But yeah. Oh, I also, speaking of things I need to rotate around, I also need to put a little bit of lubrication in the detent ball hole such that when the detent rotates around the blade, we're good to go. All right, now let's drop the other pivot or other washer on there. Yeah, the wear pattern over here. And just drop that there. Beautiful. Rotate, rotate, rotate. Right there. Okay, next step is going to be, this is facing down. It is properly aligned. It's actually not quite properly aligned, but it's close enough that it might snap into place. But I'm going to use a watch spring bar tool here just to slightly influence the position here. I am, after all, apparently an influencer. Come on. Really? Okay, turn, you little bugger. This is part of the reason why I do appreciate when makers put the put the non-free spinning part of the pivot low rather than high, because then when you insert it, you make sure it's clocked to the right position rather than at the end when everything's in position there. Okay, I think I just went too far. Now that it finally came loose, that should be good to go. There we go. Beautiful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten these two little guys up here. Good. And good. Now what I got to do is put the pivot in position, tighten it down. Use a little bit of thread locker here. Didn't feel the need to thread lock those back two because they're underneath the titanium already and shouldn't see much. Yeah, but I'll go ahead and do it for the pivot. Okay, put the pivot in place here. Now, technically speaking, I could just put the scale back on and then do this tweaking, but I don't know that I, strictly speaking, need to. And this gives me the option in case there is an issue to get back under here. Okay. Still no blade play. Much smoother. Go ahead, loosen it a little bit further. That was maybe a little too much, I think. No play. Smoother still. Dead centered. I'll go ahead and I'll drop the tie in place here. Make sure that the tie doesn't influence anything. It shouldn't, but, you know, who knows. There's that. There's that. Okay. That is smoother, actually. Oh, but I've introduced some play. I think I loosened things too much there. Still smoother. Okay. Part of this, I think, is just wear of the detent, across the detent ball path there. No blade play. Can I loosen this a little bit further? Feel like I might could. Yep. Okay, nice. Beautiful. All right, we have disassembled this guy. We have stropped it up a little bit, just well, the washers, that is, just to make sure that everything is as optimized as it can be. And everything should be good to go. So there you go. I hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of the day, and that you enjoyed a nerd talking about a nerd, well, disassembling a nerd. It's Nerdception. Hope this has been interesting. Have a good one. Bye now.